The Evergreen Show, taking your business from seed to sapling to towering giant. With your hosts, best-selling author and business growth experts Noah Fleming and Shawn Veltman. This is the only show that gives you proven, pragmatic, and immediately applicable business growth strategies every week in 15 minutes or less. Here's Noah and Shawn.
Hey everyone, we are back for another episode of The Evergreen Show. This is your host, Noah Fleming, with my co-host, Chief Engineer, Dr. Shawn Veltman. Shawn, give me the scoop, buddy. How you doing today?
I am doing great, Noah. We're finally starting to get out of this grip of crazy winter, some warm weather on the way, and I am most importantly looking forward to talking about the craziness that companies go through to try to pretend personalization today.
Yeah, you sent me an interesting article over the week, which was coincidental, just happened to come to me while I was with a client in St. Louis. So let me talk about the article quick, and then let me talk about my experience with the client, and then we'll get into this. So the article you sent me, it was actually a study that had been done by one of the biggest research firms out there, and they found that over 50% of all customers decided to buy somewhere else because of a lousy customer experience. And they equated this to really poor personalization. And so the study said overall, across the world, this was costing companies about $2.5 trillion a year. What do you think about that, Shawn?
I think that's a giant number. And, I think one of the things that was really interesting about the article and the study was that the idea of what is bad customer service. It wasn't that you had a representative throw coffee in a customer's face or impugn the integrity of their parents or anything like that. The bad experience in this case might have been something as small as they sent me an email with my first and last name in all caps.
Yeah.
Or, they sent me a robocall to ask me to fill out a survey about my customer experience. It's these things that, it's not necessarily a horrible customer experience, that we might think of in the boardroom, but for customers who get a lot of this crap, it's obviously enough to make them get fed up with it.
Yeah, I think one of the big things they looked at was the use of big tools, big data, automation, and things like that, which would allow companies to provide a more personalized experience. But the reality was most of them are either using the tools incorrectly, or they're just doing a lousy, shoddy job at providing a personalized experience. So you said, your example was perfect, right? The very simple mail merge mistake, which most of us have made, myself included. I've certainly been guilty of making that mistake before, but 50% of all customers across businesses and industries go elsewhere because of a lousy experience. So now let me tie that back to my client I was working with, shamelessly, because I think it makes a lot of sense here. So this was a $50 million plus manufacturing firm located in St. Louis, probably closer to about $75-80 million a year in annual revenue. And I've been working with their sales and service teams on improving customer service, improving the personalization that they give to their clients, the rapport they develop with them, the experience they deliver. And so they're using something that you and I have developed together, which is the Pick 3 process. And we've got close to 30 people in this company that have been using this process now for about 6 months. And the results are outstanding. So the most interesting thing to me is we're not reliant on technology. We're not reliant on tools. And we'll talk about why those are good and bad in a few minutes. But we're relying on a very simple process, making that process something that requires very little action, and making it a habitual thing. It's an expectation now of their work and their job, and they're reaping the rewards. So clients say things like, I've never had an experience like this. And they've gone from losing customers to now, retaining almost all of them, and they're buying more. They're increasing their revenue. And so, again, it doesn't have to be difficult. But that study that you sent me, Shawn, was just such an eye-opener to me of, let's jump on the shiny new bandwagon thing. Let's try and provide this really great personalized experience using automation and different tools. And yeah, you know what? It might be costing us $2.5 trillion a year. Pretty scary.
It really is. And I think this comes back to something that you and I talk about so often, which is the abdication of management responsibility or the abdication of responsibility from anybody in a company, right? And we think, oh, we've got these tools and we've got this magic technology, and so we just let it do the work, and that never works out, right? I used to say to people that having a business intelligence tool in place doesn't mean that you can give up your own intelligence. These are tools to help augment the work that you're doing, not to replace the work that you're doing. And I think what's so amazing about the experiences that we've had implementing Pick3 in companies is that forcing this discipline of individual contact, forcing this discipline of human interaction, it's an incredible change in a world that's going ever more toward automated interactions, toward email or voice or robocalls or all of that, because those things are easy and they're cheap, but they're not creating a personal connection. They're not creating a personalized experience. And that's really what all of us want.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's sort of the core of the Pick3. It's making sure all your interactions are personable, they're memorable, and they treat this customer with this really, interesting human-to-human touch, which is something that we crave these days. And so, back to St. Louis, my work with the team, we found some areas where we needed to tweak the Pick3. So one of the things that had happened was we had either gotten away from some of the tasks losing some of their feeling, some of that personalization, and it was becoming sort of habitual to a negative. And so we had to bring them back. We had to zone in the tasks, which I think in our Pick3 there's about 37, and then we help companies develop other tasks for the Pick3. But again, it's just about creating these simple things that you can do regularly. Now, let's talk, Shawn, quickly about the tools, because you and I are firm, big believers in tools, in software, in processes. And so, one of the things this study talked about was companies using these tools to a disadvantage. Let's talk about the positive side where we think tools help with the, avoiding that abdication of responsibility.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was on my mind. We do spend a lot of time helping companies not just put tools into place, but to pick the tools that are going to have the most impact for them.
Or we build them, right?
We build them, yeah. Exactly. And so even at the start of this process, the intelligence part of this, the judgment part of this is so important. It's not enough just to grab a tool, smack it in place, and hope that it works. You have to understand what's the benefit, what's going to be different in my world once I have this in place. So I'll give an example that ties into this personalization thing and even ties into Pick3. So let's say that we've got a company and they're doing 3, 4, 500 million a year in sales. They've got a lot of clients who are doing a little bit of revenue. So it's not like they've got 100 huge core clients that make up all the revenue. They might have 10,000, 20,000 clients. In that case, one of the most important things that you can do with the tool, one of the most interesting things you can do with the tool is to determine which are the clients that need the contact the most right now. Which are the clients that are going to be leaving shortly? And how can we reach out to them in order to keep them, in order to find out why they've stopped buying or why they're about to stop buying? So, we've got tools that do things like predictive churn analysis. We've got tools that do things like looking at the history of a client and determining when their activity has changed such that it indicates they're about to leave. And using tools like that in order to identify a small subset of people that you really need to reach out to now and focus your resources on. That's an incredible use of technology, an incredible use of tools that helps you create a stronger personal connection rather than just sending out an email blast to all caps, John Smith III.
But, it's funny because even the predictive analytics side, and I think this is a lot what that study was alluding to. So even if you put that predictive analytics in place, a lot of companies think, okay, well, now we've got the predictive analytics. Now we can automate that follow-up too. And again, what you said there is really important, right? This gives you the signal that this customer, this client needs some sort of meaningful touch. And again, that's why we preach the importance of personalized touch, meaningful touch, because that's what really really matters. And so if you automate the process to the next step, which is, well, now we can create the tools to send out the email blasts and to handle the mail merge, in some extent that can work. But in most cases, again, this is the exact reason why this isn't working for companies the way they expect it. They expect these tools to just handle everything. And again, let them go on doing their normal everyday busyness. But the reality is, which you and I both know, these are some of the most important things that companies need to be doing themselves. We advocate, and CEOs and presidents of organizations and owners of companies, they're often the first ones that we get doing the pick 3, because it's important, again, to put themselves back into that role and making those meaningful touch points. So I love this topic. I mean, I love the idea of businesses losing $2.5 trillion a year and over 50% of their customers, because I think that creates a great opportunity for you and I, Shawn, to help them, to show them that there's a better way to make sure this doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And I think your point there about starting from the top is incredibly important here, right? So anybody listening to this, wherever you are, make sure that it's starting with you and pass it up. If you've got people above you, pass up this idea that they need to be involved. They need to be reaching out. They need to be creating a personal connection with the clients of yours that are the most important, will be the most impactful for it. Because creating those personal touches is incredibly valuable. And when you can get a corporate culture that has that at the heart of it, it's going to be really hard to be toppled, right? We've talked about companies before, like your Amazons and your Walmarts, the giants and the behemoths. They don't need to do this stuff with the people at the end of the buying chain, right? I'm not getting a call from Bentonville from the Walmart buyers, even though I bought a blender there 3 years ago. But if you're a smaller company, if you're competing against the giants, you don't have the advantages they do. The advantage you do have is a beating heart and a human soul, and you can put that to good use.
Right. And, one of the warning signs that on that point, which we have talked about before, though, is that companies like Amazon and companies like Walmart are continuing to push the boundaries on this and to figure out where they can draw that, where they can compete on that personalization level with a meaningful and human interaction. And some of them are starting to do a good job of it. I mean, Amazon, is offering basically 24/7 live chat these days. You can get in touch with somebody almost instantly. They've got instant access to your entire history. And so they're able to provide a really personalized experience. And this just makes it much harder for all of us. Now, back to my St. Louis client one more time. Again, some of the questions that came up from a few of the people doing this was, well, we don't really understand why we should be doing this, and we're not really sure if it's having an impact. Where others were saying, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, we're seeing the impact. It's evidenced in our orders. It's evidenced in the response we get from clients. But again, the big thing and the most simplistic thing I always fall back on is the reason you should be doing this is because your competitors aren't. And we know your competitors aren't doing this. We know most companies aren't doing this. It's such a simple way to put yourself ahead of the pack. Shawn, that's all I got here. Do you want to go into the challenge?
Absolutely.
Is there any, and before that, is there anything you want to comment on what I just said?
What I'd like to comment on what you just said is just to say that, you're right. Amazon and the large companies are finding ways to add personalization, and that is scary. What's nice for all the rest of us, though, is that most of us are in markets where our competitors and our main competitors aren't doing that yet. And we can create a sustainable competitive advantage by finding out how to do this in a disciplined and consistent way that actually creates stronger relationships. It's not hard, but it's difficult, right? It's difficult to do this every day. It's difficult to get your people to have the motivation to do it every day. It's difficult to monitor what's going on and ensure that it's happening. But if you can do it, you create a huge sustained advantage for yourself. So as far as the challenge goes, I come back to grab some pick 3 examples, right? We've given a lot on the podcast before. The simplest ones are, call 3 of your best customers and ask for a testimonial or a referral. Call 3 clients who've left you in the past year and ask them why. Call 3 of your clients and just follow up on the most recent order and make sure there's nothing else that you can do to service that for them. Call 3 people and create a connection. That's the gist of this.
Again, it's such a simple challenge, right? Just pick 3 of your clients and do something that's meaningful, memorable, and personable, and see what sort of impact that has. We've had clients that the very first day they engage in the pick 3, they close new business. They generate additional revenue. They get testimonials. They get case studies. And so when we get multiple people doing this, like 25 people in a $75 million company in St. Louis, the results are dramatic. So again, if this is something you want to talk about, Shawn and I would love to tell you more. You can get in contact with us at noahfleming.com. Hit the contact button. We always respond. Keep your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions coming for the podcast. We love them. Definitely continue to share this with your friends, colleagues, and peers. Shawn, I got nothing else. You got anything else you want to add here today?
I think it's a great place to stop for today, and I can't wait to do this again next week.
All right, folks, we'll see you next week. You've got your marching orders. Go get it.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us each and every week for another great episode of The Evergreen Show with your hosts, Noah Fleming and Shawn Veltman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on The Evergreen Show.